Today you will hear an amazing story of transformation that might be hard to believe. This testimony was sent by a viewer who found faith in the darkest moment of her life. Listen to Jade's journey from addiction to redemption and share your thoughts in the comments below.
Hi, my name is Jade Wilson, and by no means necessary should I be alive today. I want to take you into the journey of my story, where my life began to end and then somehow started again. This all happened in 2021, in a college town where dreams go to die and parties never stop. I was 21 years old, a former pre-med student with a future that had dissolved like pills and vodka. My parents divorced when I was 19 and something in me just broke. I couldn't handle seeing two people who promised forever tear each other apart like that. So I started numbing everything. First with alcohol, then pills, then whatever I could get my hands on. I remember the night everything changed. I'd just been evicted from my apartment, my third in 6 months. The landlord left my stuff in garbage bags on the curb. I had nowhere to go, no one to call. My roommates had abandoned me weeks before. My phone was filled with dealers' numbers, but not a single friend. So I did what I always did when reality became too much. I found a party. It wasn't hard in a college town on a Friday night. The bass was thumping from some frat house, and I slipped in like a ghost. Nobody questioned me. Nobody cared. I headed straight for the kitchen where the real pharmacy was. I swallowed whatever was offered. Pills crushed and snorted, shots downed in rapid succession. I remember laughing at some point, a hollow sound that didn't feel like it came from me. Then nothing. Just darkness. They told me later that some freshman girl found me in the bathroom, blue-lipped and barely breathing. She called 911 instead of just closing the door and walking away. I never learned her name. I woke up in the hospital with tubes running everywhere and the steady beep of machines telling me I was somehow still alive. The doctor didn't sugarcoat it. Your liver is failing. Your kidneys are struggling. At 21, your body is fighting like it belongs to someone twice your age. If you continue like this, you won't see 22. I laughed in his face. What did it matter? I had nothing anyway. Then my father walked in. I hadn't seen him in over a year. He looked older, grayer, but his eyes were clear. Not bloodshot like mine always were. He sat beside my bed without touching me. "This is it, Jade," he said. "Your last chance. There's a place called New Life House. It's a six-month Christian recovery program. I'll pay for it, but this is the last time I'm bailing you out. You go there, or you're on your own for real." I wanted to tell him to go to hell. I wanted to scream that he had no right to show up now, after abandoning me when he abandoned Mom. But the words died in my throat when I saw his eyes. They weren't angry. They were terrified. So I said yes. Not because I wanted to get better, not because I believed in recovery or God or any of that bullshit. I said yes because it was a roof, a bed, and 6 months to figure out my next move. New Life House was in the middle of nowhere. Rolling hills, fields of corn, and a big white farmhouse that looked like something from a country magazine. I hated it immediately. The withdrawal hit me hard those first days. Sweating, shaking, vomiting, hallucinating. I begged for something, anything to take the edge off. But Marina, the program director, just sat with me through it all. She never judged, never preached, just held cold washcloths to my forehead and told me I was stronger than I thought. "God doesn't make junk, Jade," she'd say. I told her to save the religious crap for someone who cared. She just smiled like she knew something I didn't. When the physical part started to ease, I began to notice the others. There were 8 women in the program. Ellie was in her 40s, a former marketing executive who lost her corner office, her marriage, and her relationship with her kids to cocaine. She was always perfectly put together, even in the simple clothes we all wore. But it was Taylor who caught my attention. Just 17, with razor-sharp wit and a sneer that could cut glass. She reminded me of myself, before everything went to hell. We started sitting together at meals, making sarcastic comments about the daily Bible studies and prayer circles. "These people actually believe this stuff," she whispered once, as everyone bowed their heads before dinner. Like some invisible man in the sky gives a shit about us. I nodded. But something strange happened when I looked around the table. These women, with their closed eyes and peaceful expressions, they didn't look stupid. They looked whole. Something I couldn't remember feeling. I played along with the program. Group therapy where we talked about our triggers and underlying issues. Work assignments in the garden or kitchen. Life skills classes that taught us how to budget and interview for jobs like we were children. I excelled at the practical stuff, just enough to keep them off my back while I ignored all the God talk. I even started helping Taylor with her GED work. Part of me was secretly planning our escape. We could leave together, I thought. Start over somewhere new. But something kept me from saying it out loud. Maybe it was the way Taylor's hands still shook sometimes, or how young she looked when she slept. One night in our 3rd month, I woke to screaming. Taylor was convulsing in her bed, foam at her lips. Someone had smuggled in drugs, and Taylor had taken them. As they carried her out to the ambulance, Marina gathered everyone in the living room. "We need to pray," she said simply. And they did, fervently, desperately, with tears streaming down their faces. I stood in the corner, arms crossed, thinking how pathetic they all looked, begging some invisible force to save a girl who had OD'd. Science would save her, or she would die. That's how the world worked. But then Marina looked up at me with tears in her eyes and said, "Join us, Jade. She needs all of us right now." Something in me cracked a little. Not because I believed, but because I was scared. Taylor was the only person in this place who understood me. So I sat awkwardly on the couch and stared at my hands while they prayed around me. 3 hours later, the hospital called. Taylor was stable. The doctors were shocked. The amount of fentanyl in her system should have killed her. "It's a miracle," Marina said, and everyone nodded like this was perfectly reasonable. I told myself it was just luck and good medical care. But a tiny seed of doubt had been planted. Taylor came back a week later, subdued and pale but alive. We didn't talk about what happened, but something had shifted between us. She started attending the Bible studies without complaint. I caught her reading a small Bible one night, the pages illuminated by flashlight. "What happened to Invisible Man in the sky?" I asked sarcastically. She looked at me with eyes that seemed older somehow. "I don't know what I believe yet," she said quietly. But when I was in the hospital, I felt something, like I wasn't alone. I walked away, unsettled. The next day, we went on a community service trip to a homeless shelter in the nearest city. We were serving meals, nothing complicated. I was spooning out mashed potatoes when I froze. At the end of the line was Dr. Ellis, my organic chemistry professor, the one who had pulled me aside in 2nd year and told me I had a brilliant mind, that I could do anything I set my thoughts to. Now he was shuffling forward in stained clothes, eyes vacant, body gaunt. He didn't recognize me. I almost didn't recognize him. Later, I found him sitting alone in a corner. "Dr. Ellis?" I said cautiously. He looked up confused, then a flicker of recognition crossed his face. "Jade Wilson," he said. "My star student." His voice was raspy, like he hadn't used it in a while. "What happened to you?" I asked, though I could guess. His story mirrored mine in so many ways. Prescription painkillers after a back injury, then stronger stuff when those stopped working. Loss of job, marriage, home. "I had everything," he said, "and now I have nothing." I looked at him and saw my future. This brilliant man reduced to this. I could feel my hands shaking as I walked back to the van. That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced my small room thinking about Dr. Ellis, about Taylor, about my own miserable existence. What was waiting for me after New Lifehouse? More drugs? More emptiness? Death? Around 3 a.m, I finally collapsed on my bed, exhausted. And that's when it happened. I can't explain it logically, even now, but I felt a presence in the room. Not frightening, but overwhelming. Like being bathed in warm light. I felt love. Pure, unconditional love, something I hadn't felt since I was a child before my world fell apart. I felt seen. Really seen. Every dark corner and ugly thought, and loved anyway. I found myself weeping, sobbing like my heart would break. Or maybe like it was being put back together. When morning came, I told no one. What would I say? I think I felt God last night? They'd think I was making it up to get through the program faster. But something had changed. I started listening during Bible study instead of zoning out. I borrowed Taylor's Bible and read it in private, confused by much of it, but strangely drawn to the stories of Jesus. The man who touched lepers, who spoke to prostitutes, who forgave those who killed him. One day, I found a letter from my mother in the mail. I'd been throwing them away unopened for months. This time I read it. She was apologizing. For the divorce, for not seeing my pain, for not being the mother I needed. She wrote about her own journey to healing, about the therapy she'd been doing, about how much she missed me. For the first time, I wrote back. Slowly, carefully. Not forgetting my anger, but allowing space for something else alongside it. The truth revealed itself in layers. Both my parents shared blame for the divorce, but I learned my father had been having an affair for years. My mother had been silently drowning in depression. They had both failed each other, and me. But they were just humans, broken and flawed like me. One day, Marina asked to speak with me privately. "You've been here 4 months, Jade. You've done well with the program requirements. Technically, you could apply for early completion, move to outpatient status." I stared at her, surprised. Early release had been my goal from day one. A chance to get out of this place with its rules and prayers and constant talk about God. But now I wasn't sure what I wanted. "Can I think about it?" I asked. She nodded, seeming pleased by my hesitation. 2 weeks later, as I was still wrestling with the decision, a car pulled up the long driveway of New Life House. 3 of my old friends from college, if you could call them that, fellow users, party companions. They stood by their car, waving and calling to me. Marina approached them, and I heard her explain that unscheduled visits weren't allowed. But Jeff, the guy I'd hooked up with countless times in drug-fueled nights, called out, "We're just here to bring Jade her stuff. We're heading to Colorado for the weekend. Big party scene. Thought she might want to come." My heart started racing. Colorado. Freedom. All the substances I'd been craving for months. A chance to silence the confusion in my head, the feelings I couldn't sort out. Marina looked at me, her face neutral. "It's your choice, Jade. No one's keeping you here against your will." I walked toward the car, saw the familiar smirks, smelled the lingering scent of weed. Jeff reached out his hand to me, and with it a small bag of pills. "Welcome back, Present," he said with a wink. I stared at his outstretched hand. Then I looked back at the farmhouse. Through the window I could see Taylor watching, her young face a mixture of fear and sadness. I looked at the pills in Jeff's hand. Once they had been salvation. Now I saw them for what they were. Chains. Death in bright colors. "No," I said, the word feeling foreign but right in my mouth. "I'm not coming." Jeff laughed, then realized I was serious. "Are you kidding me? You're staying in Jesus camp? Did they brainwash you or something?" Maybe they had, I thought. Or maybe for the first time in years my brain was actually clean enough to think clearly. "I'm staying," I repeated, stronger this time. "Good luck in Colorado." I turned and walked back to the house without looking back. That night I asked Marina if I could stay for the full 6 months. She hugged me tight and whispered, "He's been waiting for you, Jade. All this time." I didn't have to ask who she meant. The night before graduation, I asked if I could speak at the ceremony. I'd never shared my experience. That night, when I felt love wash over me, it felt too personal, too precious to put into words. But now I needed to try. Standing at the podium the next day, looking at my parents sitting side by side in the audience, awkward but civil for my sake, I took a deep breath. My name is Jade Wilson, and I'm an addict. But that's not all I am. 6 months ago, I came here because it was my only option. I didn't believe in recovery. I definitely didn't believe in God. I thought faith was a crutch for weak people who couldn't face reality. I paused, meeting the eyes of the women who had become my friends, my sisters. Now I know that faith isn't blindness to reality. It's seeing a deeper reality beneath the surface. It's recognizing that love is stronger than addiction, stronger than hate, stronger than death itself. I shared my story, all of it. The overdose, the hospital, my initial resistance, and then that night in my room when something inexplicable happened. "I can't prove it to you," I said. "I can't show you lab results or brain scans. All I know is that I was dead inside, and now I'm alive. I was lost, and now I'm found. And the journey is just beginning." 6 months later, I was back at New Life House, not as a resident, but as an assistant, helping Marina with intake assessments while taking online courses to finish my biology degree. My new goal was addiction counseling, combining science and faith in a way that made sense to me now. I still had questions, still had doubts. There were days when the craving for numbness returned with crushing force. I wasn't magically fixed, but I was healing. And when new women arrived, eyes vacant and bodies trembling like mine once had, I would sit with them through the long nights of withdrawal, holding cold washcloths to their foreheads. "God doesn't make junk," I would tell them, borrowing Marina's words. Some would curse at me, as I had once cursed. Some would weep. All were welcome. All were loved. And when they asked how I could believe in a God who let such suffering happen, I would simply tell them my story. I was a reluctant witness, testifying to something I never expected to find. A love that found me at my lowest, that saw all my brokenness and loved me anyway. A presence that waited patiently for me to stop running. A truth that set me free. So that's my story. Not a fairy tale with a perfect ending, but a real, messy journey that continues every day. I don't know why that freshman girl found me in the bathroom instead of walking away. I don't know why I survived when others don't. I don't have all the answers. But I have enough light for the step I'm on. And sometimes that's all the miracle you need.
Stories like Jade's remind us why we created this channel, to share authentic testimonies of God's work in our lives. If you've experienced a miraculous moment or spiritual transformation, your testimony could bring hope to someone who's struggling right now. Email us at the address below. Until next time, may you walk in faith and recognize the divine appointments in your own life.